The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, it's the giant head from Minneapolis. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Time, Daylight Time. No, it's Central Time, period. It's not Daylight Time. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 192. If you're keeping home the score, what am I talking about? If you're keeping score at home, Jesus, what a great way to start. Oh, this is terrific. He's got brain cancer. Oh, no. All right. So where were we? All right. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. And so, yeah, we got a new thing here. We announced it on Monday, but that was inauguration day and everything kind of got lost. We got a new schedule here. We used to broadcast Monday through Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? Okay. So we've been on the air. We've been doing this in this incarnation for about 18 months now. And after the first year, I actually did the tally. I think we did 152 shows, and if you can do some math, that means we were doing almost exactly 3 shows a week. Well, that's not 4, and so I thought, well, screw this. I told my wife since we started this that I would take time off until I was making any real money. I would take time off for family outings and events and that sort of thing, and I did. And so, yeah, and then I had surgery in last June and all that sort of stuff. So I was off for a couple of weeks, and it came out to about 3 days a week. So I said, well, let's screw this. So now we're doing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The other thing is, I mean, I'm not fooling anybody here. Relatively few people watch this show live. Almost everybody watches it on demand. And so it takes a good day for Rumble and YouTube and the other outlets to actually send out the emails that we have a new show. So there's that too. And also I just think it's probably good that we get some people on the weekend. I mean, I think since we started, we've only done one show on Friday, and this Friday will be the second one, and this Friday will be live. Now, and I have to be honest with you, not all the Fridays will be live. We'll do almost all Mondays and Wednesdays will almost always be live, but Fridays may or may not be live, depending on what's going on. But we're doing Friday live, and next, so that's what we got. So we got Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Now, the other new thing we got here is and I forgot to put it up, but we have the banners down here, the tickers down here. We have a new call-in telephone number because Blog Talk Radio is no longer in business. So our new call-in number is 325-CALL-JIM. Can you remember that? I bet you can. I bet you can remember it. 325-CALL-JIM. Or that's 325-225-5546. That's what that number is. So, and we're taking calls all night tonight. And Think called in on Monday night in the middle of something I was talking about. He wants to talk about something different. I don't care. That's great. And him and we had a great conversation. He's a really good guy. He's a regular caller here. And we talked about some stuff about the aliens and AI, which I'm going to talk about more tonight at the end of in our part 2. So, you call in. You please feel free. 325-CALL-JIM. We're still taking text messages at 408-458-5088. A lot of numbers, a lot of stuff to remember, but you can do it. My cat just walked in. Okay, that's good. I don't see him around here. All right. Got the big studio going on. So, and then you're wondering this background behind me. So now This is a shot from the Stone Arch Bridge in downtown Minneapolis, only a few blocks from our studio here. And it's not snowing right now, but I want to give a hearty shout out to all the people in Houston and Baton Rouge and New Orleans who had snow on the ground this morning. They're not used to that. So, and I had to do some looking here. So now there was snow in the Texas Panhandle. There was snow all the way down to Tampa. Matter of fact, I think Tampa got a few inches, if I'm right. And I don't know if you know this. Well, I went to school at the University of Miami. I was in Miami on January 19th, 1977, which was like this week. It was like 48 years ago this week. That's how old I am because I went to school at the University of Miami. And that day in Miami, for the only time in recorded history, and this did not happen this week too, for the only time, it snowed. It snowed about a quarter of an inch at 6 o'clock in the morning. Although in Fort Lauderdale, they got like 2 or 3 inches. I was only in Miami proper. And so that was a historic event, and people in Miami went crazy. I was actually looking on the the tubes today about what actual date it was. There's quite a few articles online about this. AccuWeather had a really good one. It's the only day. Then of course it did not snow. Today either in Miami. Hold on a second. Because you have to understand, southern Florida, the southern third of Florida, is the only place in the U.S., and I actually think technically this is even true of Hawaii, that's a truly tropical climate. It's that small bottom portion of Florida. It's a truly tropical climate. Everything else is like subtropical or whatever they call it. So they're not supposed to get snow at all. And AccuWeather explained this in their article. It was a really weird confluence of cold air from various places, and the fact that normally it would have rained that morning, so they got snow. So, but they didn't get any snow there this time. No, Tampa, Orlando, everything north of that they did, and I bitch about the weather here in Minnesota. First of all, 2 nights ago, I'm not kidding about this. 2 nights ago, it was 20 below here. That's not any stupid wind chill, mamby-pamby wind chill bullshit. That was an actual temperature. It's 20 below. Let me tell you something. You don't want to go outside when it's 20 below. Actually, personally, I don't think you want to go outside if it's anywhere below 0. That's the thing. I mean, freezing 32 degrees, and this is what I've evolved to at this point after having to live. I lived in Los Angeles several years. I lived in Miami. I be above 32 degrees, above freezing, I can go without a coat. I mean, I have to wear a jacket, but I mean, I can go without a real winter coat. Below that, I need a winter coat. Below 0, I don't want to go outside. And you don't either. You do not want to go out there. It's terrible. But like my wife has explained, and she's very right about this, about the fact that at least we know. I mean, every part of the country has their weather thing, like things go awful, I mean, they got the wildfires in LA, Christ, they got hurricanes down in Florida on a regular basis in the Gulf of America, not the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. But here in Minnesota, yeah, we have terrible weather, but the thing is, we know it's coming, and it comes on basically a regular schedule every year. We know pretty much. I mean, I was telling you, there's usually 2 or 3 days in January where the temperature here gets to 20 below. I mean, that's severe even for here, but it does happen. And it was the last 2 or 3 days, as it turns out. I mean, now today the high was 29. I actually think about this. You stop and think about it, that's a 49-degree difference in 24 hours. And believe me, after 20 below, 29 degrees positive is downright balmy. I mean, I went outside this afternoon. I had to. The weather's nice, So, and matter of fact, next Monday it's supposed to get above freezing, and we have now gotten over the hump of our really, really cold weather here. That's how bad it is. Like 2 or 3 days. It's usually about 20 below. And so that just happened. But in Houston, I mean, it snowed. They shut down the airport. They don't know what to do. I remember my sister-in-law lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it snows there occasionally, and it was snowing. And when it snows, they shut down everything. It's like, don't go on the streets. Don't go out. Basically, it's curfew. And she's driving around, and she got pulled over by by a state trooper, and he says, "Why are you out driving?" And he says, "Let me see your license." And her license said Minnesota, and he said, "Oh, that's fine. Go ahead." And yeah, and let me tell. All right, I want to end this. Let me tell you about the story about the day it snowed in Miami. So I am going to school there at the University of Miami Music School, and I'm a good I'm a good preppy, and so I'm a good Minnesotan too. And it snows at 6 o'clock in the morning. The snow's gone by 9 o'clock. As a matter of fact, the AccuWeather even talked about that too. It was completely melted. There was no trace of it 3 hours later. And so I'm gonna go play tennis, you know? So yeah, I'm walking across. I played tennis and I'm walking across campus in my tiny little 1970s white shorty shorts and my logo polo shirt. And this woman, this student, she's walking the other way down the path, and she's wearing a full length mink coat. And she stops me. She says, I quote her. She says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "It's freezing out here. How can you walk around like that?" And then without even me answering, she asked, "Where are you from?" I said, "Minnesota." And she said, "Oh," and she left. And that was pretty much it, you know? I mean, they're pussies. I hate to say it, you know? And, not, and I can't give the people in Houston a hard time. They shut down the airport. They shut down everything because they aren't expecting this doesn't happen there. It doesn't. It's like, and this is a tragic thing, but it's kind of like the Hurricane Helene getting all the way up into North Carolina. That's not supposed to happen. That isn't. That's a once in a lifetime or maybe a once in a century event that hurricane actually picked up steam as it went up through land. That's not supposed to happen at all. So that's really, really a weird thing. And what happened in Houston is a weird thing. But we're expecting 2020 bowl weather here, and we're expecting a boatload of snow. And over the last couple of years, we haven't got it. And I'm sure our good liberal friends will tell you that's climate change. Bullshit. That's weather. And I got a little thing here about that in just a second. So the White House is they've issued about 400 or so, depending on how you define them, executive orders, directives, advisements, whatever, in the last like 36 hours. He hasn't been president, um, well, as of this point, not even for 2 whole days, and they're updating their website literally in real time. So I'm watching the presidential balls on Monday night. And this is after we did the show. I watched them. Well, I don't know if I watched them on repeat. No, they were live. I think we got done here about 9 Central, 9:15. We did 75 minutes on Monday, and I'm watching the um the presidential balls, and I'm just thinking. And he signed all of these executive orders, and then he did a 1 hour off the cuff ad hoc news conference in the Oval Office. And I'm just wondering, how can these people complain about losing when they were so incompetent? That's the thing I don't understand. The reason they got voted out of office is because of their incompetency. And if they had just done a good job, it probably wouldn't have happened. But they can't get around to doing a good job. They can't get around to that, And so I got a few notes here about what happened today. So the president has ordered that all the DEI offices in the United States government were to be shut down by 5 p.m. Eastern time. And of course, it's now 9 p.m. It's 9:14 Eastern time. So I'm assuming that all happened, and the liberals are losing their minds completely. But the thing is, like, what are you expecting? That's the thing I don't understand. And none of this stuff ever polled well with the public. It's like they just assumed they could shove this down people's throats, and they assumed they were right and that people should just buy it. And people did not buy it. They didn't. So Demi Lovato, she's a star, just ask her. She identifies as gender non-binary, although she's admittedly gone back and forth over the last few years. Sometimes she's straight and sometimes she's not. So depending on how she feels in a particular day. And that's exactly the reason I brought this up. Well, anyway, she was saying her message to all the transgender kids out there is, we'll get through this. Well, I want to point something out. There are, and I said, then this is the thing. This is what really bothers me. No one in politics ever bothers to be precise about anything because it takes too long, and they assume you won't understand. I don't assume that. Matter of fact, if you don't understand, you probably shouldn't be watching this show because I'm going to bore you. Now, I've said this before. Transgenderism is a very real thing. It is real. There are people who just feel mercilessly locked up in their bodies because they think something went wrong, something's not right. But here's the thing with that: there's very few people that suffer from this, and the vast majority of people who think they do don't. They're just mentally disturbed. You have to be a psychiatrist to figure out who really is transgender and who just has emotional problems. You do. That's the problem with this whole thing. And so, yeah, and also, like I said, there's the numbers involved. I don't even know if 1 out of every 1,000 people in the United States is truly transgender. That's 0.1% of the population. It's probably less than that. My friend Tim Conaway is regular guest on the show. He said it's probably about 5,000 people in the entire U.S. I don't know if it's that low, but it's pretty damn low. So they came up with this entire scenario to basically cater to 5 or 10,000 people. So, Demi Lovato says to all the transgender kids, "We'll get through this." Well, there aren't any transgender kids, and I can truly say that's zero because no child under the age of 13 or 14 has any touch with their sexual identity at all. They don't even know what sex is. That's the first key here. Secondly, of this. All right, so no one's actually said you can't be transgender. No, no, the thing is how it affects the government. This is the thing that's also going on in the military. It's like, whether the military should cater to transgender people. Well, the military, its first job is to cater to killing people. And people don't want to hear that because that's awful and it's cruel and it's not civilized. But that's what the military is supposed to do. They're fighting force and they're supposed to kill people. So it has nothing to do with transgenderism at all. Nothing. So, and I just, that we're going to get through this. Yeah, you will. That's the thing, you will. And then also on top of that, um, there's this thing about there's lesbian bishop, and I have to bring up the fact she's lesbian because it has something to do with the conversation here. Gave a prayer breakfast that the Trump and Vance and his families were at yesterday, and she basically lectured him for instilling fear in transgender people and immigrants. And this is another thing that's really bothering me too. Fear has become the new thing. It's like, people are afraid. Okay, first of all, are they? Secondly, is that necessarily terrible? I'm not saying that anybody should should um, purposely make anybody afraid. But yeah, you're afraid. People are afraid of all sorts of stuff, and a lot of times rightly so too, you know. And she says afterwards, so she's there, she's basically lecturing the president. I mean, a lot of people thought it was disgusting. I heard some senator said this afternoon on Fox News that he would have got up and walked out, and he said he actually credited Trump for not doing that. And no, Trump didn't. He did say what he thought afterwards. And matter of fact, he did talk to the woman too afterwards. I don't know what was said, but he did. But she says afterwards, I was speaking truth. And that's the other thing too. Whose truth? You know, your personal truth or the objective truth. Now, I deal with science on this program all the time. It sounds like I'm changing subjects here. I'm not. And in science, there's now, quantum mechanics has become a huge thing in the physics community. And the thing is, quantum mechanics, the problem a lot of people have it with it is that it's not objective. It's not measurable. You can, I mean, you can have, for example, a particle can be measured either in its velocity or its direction, but not both at the same time. That's what quantum uh, mechanics dictates. And so it's a very subjective art. It's some partly an art and partly a science. It's very, very, very weird, you know. So yeah, okay, there's the objective truth and your personal truth. And I don't have any trouble with your personal truth per se, especially if it goes against objective truth, but don't say it's objective truth. It isn't, you know. What's happened to you and your experience, all right, that has happened to you, but it's still not objective truth. Objective truth regards polling, what people think. I mean, a lot of my liberal friends are astonished that I called the election so correctly. No, it's just like Jimmy Fallon talks about this on his Fox News radio show too, about the fact that some people are just. I'm one of those people. I'm in touch with the zeitgeist. I know what other people are thinking. And a lot of people can't do that at all. And it's astonishing to me how many people get into politics and can't do it. You'd think if you're going into politics, that should be some sort of uh, ability you should have. It's astonishing how many people in politics can't do that. You know, and right now we have basically an entirety of a Democratic Party that can't seem to figure out why they lost or what Americans are thinking. They can't seem to understand it. AOC gets on TikTok today, and she posts a video about the fact that there's the other things going on right now. And come on, it's like you're reaching for straws if you actually think this. This is the problem. It shows that you got nothing about this thing about at the inaugural pre-event on Saturday night about um, Elon Musk supposedly giving the German Ziegau salute, the Hitler salute. Well, bullshit. And he didn't. And so you're grasping at straws, and that's the thing. Okay, let's say he did. First of all, he's doing that in jest. Everyone knows this man. He's the richest man in the world. Everybody knows who he is. Next to Trump, he's probably the most famous person on the planet right now. And everyone knows where he's coming from. No, no, there's nothing. It has nothing to do with Nazis. And also, you don't know anything about Nazis. What was I reading? I was reading John Nolte today on Breitbart, and he was talking about that. He was talking about the fact that what is a Nazi? Well, a Nazi was somebody who belonged to the Nazi Party. And Nazi was an acronym for what translates into America, into English, as the National Socialist Party. They were socialists. Yeah, that's right. They were leftists. There you go. Did you know that? No, no, you didn't. Does AOC know that? No, no, she doesn't. She doesn't know that. She doesn't. So they're freaking out. They've got nothing at this point. And this is it's really embarrassing. I've said this. I'm starting to think that I'm really onto something here. That Trump's reemergence or resurrection, or whatever you want to call it, is going to ultimately destroy the Democratic Party for a whole generation. I really think, because the thing is, they're not in tune with the American public at all. And one of the reasons they're not in tune with the American public, and I don't know how this happened. Matter of fact, I'd like to get some liberals on there to talk about this, about the fact that 20% that the 20% of the crazy lunatics in the Democratic Party took over the Democratic Party. None of these people make any sense, but the thing is, they are a minority. I mean, I live in liberal land here. The district I'm sitting in right now is one of the three most liberal districts in the United States. I mean, Minnesota is a liberal community. There's no doubt about it. And most of the people I know are not that crazy. They aren't. But the people running the Democratic Party are. They're nuts. They're crazy. And this is what happened to Joe Biden, is that Joe Biden was so infirmed, apparently even when he even started in 2021, that his staff ended up doing everything. His staff was made up of young social justice warriors right out of college, and they set the agenda, and they did all the stuff they wanted to do, and nobody else wants it, including the majority of the members of the Democratic Party. They don't want it either. And so now they're going to, they're going to eat each other, and to try to figure out what's going on here. It's going to take them, I mean, unless Trump really, really screws up in some major way, I'm almost certain right now that another Republican will be elected president again. It'll probably be either J.D. Vance or Ron DeSantis, and either one of them would be terrific. They got nobody. They've got nobody. They've got nobody that makes any sense at all. Trump keeps talking about getting back to common sense. They seem to be immune to it. It's like they're allergic to it. They just can't do it. Oh man, yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, but it's really true. I mean, I'm just astonished by what's going on. It's like, how did you people not think this was going to happen? That's the thing. It's like, so you got a guy who was infirmed when he took office. He's barely alive now. I'm taking votes. I actually don't know either way, but I'm taking bets on whether Joe Biden will even make it to the end of the year. And so they kick him out because apparently, regardless of what he says, I think I could have won. What's coming out now is the internal polling in the Democratic Party said he was going to lose by 400 electoral votes. You know, and I just want to point out, just once again, to be precise and accurate, Trump's victory was not a landslide. It was decisive. It was decisive, not a landslide, because the landslide is what happened to Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale with Ronald Reagan. Jimmy Carter lost the election in 1980 with only 49 electoral votes, and Walter Mondale lost with he had only 10. That's right. He had 10 electoral votes from his home state of Minnesota, and Ronald Reagan won all the rest. Now that's a landslide, but it was but Trump's victory was definitely decisive. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he won every category, and even the categories he didn't win, he made huge gains among African American, Hispanic people. I mean, there's pretty much no doubt that African American men were definitely with Trump. There's because they're getting tired of toxic masculinity too. And by the way, who came up with that term? It's like, that's crap. You know, you want me to talk about toxic femininity? No, I couldn't, because my house would probably be burned down. So I won't. Oh man. Well, speaking of all this, then there's Pete Hegseth. Speaking about not having anything, so Pete Hegseth is probably going to be confirmed as Secretary of Defense. Although they're delaying the vote now, but it's just a matter of time. It looks like he's talked to all of the Republicans into the fact that he would be a good choice. There were some people, uh, uh, Joni Ernst. Oh God, I couldn't remember his name. The senator from anyway, there were a few senators that who had doubts about him, but apparently his performance in the confirmation hearings completely cleared that up. It looks like he's going to basically sail through. But so now they're pulling the stunt, and they do. I just don't believe they do this stuff. It's like, give it up about the fact that he abused his wife, physically abused his ex-wife when they were married. Even she says they don't. And you know who they got to actually like, quote unquote, sign an affidavit? Well, I don't know if that's legal or whatever it is. I don't know what kind of affidavit that is. It's like it was his ex-brother-in-law's sister, something like that. It's like this woman even isn't even third hand. It's like fourth hand. But his wife, the woman who's in question here, she says this never happened. And this is his ex-wife, and most exes, would probably, I mean, I'm making a generalization here. Most people, the generalization, they do not part on good terms. So you think, that she would want to twist the knife if she could, but no, she says, no, none of this stuff happened. So that's what they're alleging. And then there's the other thing too. And this, I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying this. Yeah, even if you did that, does that actually make you unqualified? I mean, I'm getting to the point where these jobs are so hard that unless, okay, so if he beat his wife, and he really did, he should be in jail. Well, and then he obviously should not be Secretary of State. But are you going to condemn a guy just on innuendo or just like hearsay? That's absurd. I mean, they tried the same thing with Brett Kavanaugh. Oh, and that worked out really well, didn't it? It basically almost destroyed his life, and yet he still got confirmed. And the reason I got confirmed is that we're starting to figure out the pattern here, that this happens regularly, and everybody knows this is bullshit now. That's the thing, So Kavanaugh, it was alleged that he raped a woman or participated in it when he was 16 years old. And Christine Blasey Ford didn't remember either the time, the place, the year, or who was involved. But she said there were 4 witnesses, and all 4 of those people said they didn't know what she was talking about. And one of the women who she claimed as a witness said that after she said that, somebody approached her with $50,000 to change her story. Geez, I wonder who that was. I wonder it's like some an anonymous person, you know, who just came up with $50,000. Geez, I wonder, you know, it was all BS. You know, I come to the conclusion that this is the way this works. And you stop and think about this, it's almost always women. And I don't know if they decided women are easy marks or what the deal is. But so the Democratic Party gets together. They have a database of all the people who are like, and they're probably ranked on how much big a supporter they are. And they go through the database and say, well, look, this person grew up near Kavanaugh at such and such a time. And they probably talked to 10 of those people. And Christine Blasey Ford says, yeah, I'll do it. I don't even think they pay these people sometimes. I think this is all speculation on my part now. I have no evidence of this at all, but I am speculating. And they say, and so they will go to like Miss Ford and they'll say, look, do this for your country. But if Brett Kavanaugh gets confirmed, it will be the end of liberalism in the United States. And they probably do say that because they say that about everything else. And she says, yeah, I'll do it, you know. So then they concoct the story and they drill it into her head and tell her what to say. And she goes on and says it. Her ex-boyfriend said she was a flake. And she was nothing about this made any sense at all. Nothing. First of all, it happened like 35 years ago. Secondly, he was a minor. If everyone in the United States, if everything you did when you were pre 18 years old was held against you, nobody would be working anywhere. Nobody would. 95% of the people on the planet, or no, in the United States anyway, have something really terrible that they did before they were 18. 95%, you know. And yeah, because you're stupid and you're young, you know. So they're trying to say that he shouldn't be a Supreme Court justice. That's the thing. Even if he did this, and it's plainly obvious he didn't, but even if he had done this, does that disqualify him from this job? See, I don't think so. And you can call me terrible, but it's like, no, you know, he's 16 years old. He's stupid. The guy's 55 now, you know? I mean, it's just no. I mean, everyone under 18 is stupid. Everyone, you know? So now Haig says was married, supposedly when this happened, but his wife says it didn't happen. So, and she's the other party involved. So he's saying it doesn't happen. She's saying it doesn't happen. Who says it happens? The sister of his ex-brother-in-law, or something like that. I can't even keep track at this point. That's who's pinning this on him. Well, yeah, good. That's good. That's really good. I mean, we're starting to figure out this game. And why do they keep playing it? Because I guess it worked 20 years ago or something like that. You know, it worked with Robert Bjork. That was the last time it actually worked. It didn't work with Clarence Thomas, so that it almost did. You know, it's like, and they just keep, and it's so pathetic at this point. You're obviously not interested in helping people or doing anything for the public good. You know, it's obvious. And so then why do you exist as a political party? Why do you exist? If you exist just to get your rocks off? Jesus. I'm actually pissed off tonight. Who would have known it? So meanwhile, so there's another thing. I've said this before on the show. There's two things that I feel passionate about that I want to get across to the American public doing this. Now, granted, okay, yeah, I don't have Joe Rogan's numbers, not even close, but maybe if I stick with this for a while. One is that the aliens are here. The extraterrestrials are visiting planet Earth, and there's no doubt about it at this point. Whether they're communicating with anybody, whether they talk to the government, that I don't know. I don't know. But there's so much evidence to indicate they're coming here. At this point, it's nuts. There's so much evidence. It's like, first of all, if we were in trial in a civil suit and preponderance of evidence, I could spend a year presenting evidence on this, 40 hours a week. There's so much. And I can't even, that's the problem. I've been studying this for 30 years and there's so much evidence. I can't even get more of it than nuggets to you. The aliens are here. There's no doubt about it. That's the first thing I want to communicate to the public. The second one is that climate change. And when I say climate change, the assumption is human powered or human caused climate change is a hoax. It's complete. It does not exist. It doesn't. It's the single biggest grift that's ever been imposed on the American public. And I have many people have come on the show. Patrick Moore, the climatologist, he came on as the single most watched episode of the show since we started. I've had Mark Morano on here. He's a regular guest on CNN and Fox News, you know. And so, yeah, I'm a climate denier. But actually, here's the deal. Once again, it's the same thing. There's you need to be precise and accurate about how this works. There's a difference between global warming and climate change. Global, and no one ever explains that to you either, do they? Global warming is very real. The world's been warming up for 300 years. That is established by science. It's very real. No doubt about it at all. Climate change, when you say climate change, the assumption is human caused climate change, right? That is bullshit. Humans are either contributing to a very minor extent or they're not contributing at all. There's no human caused climate change, or very little. But the world is warming up. And then actually, okay, like I said, 300 years. Now you stop and think about this. The first half of those 300 years, there was no industrialization on the planet. The world warmed up anyway. There was no way humans could even affect climate change, and the world warmed up. You know why? Because climate change, or global warming, excuse me. Once again, I'm getting my own terms confused. Global warming is caused by the wobble of the Earth's revolution around the sun. That's why. There's slight variations in the distance from the Earth to the sun, and that's what causes the temperature to go up and down over a long period of time. It's yeah, Patrick Moore wrote a book, and I never remember the title of it because it's something called something and Threats of Doom or something. And it's terrible. I should remember the title of it. I should look. Um, where he very eloquently. The book's only 150 pages. I tell you what, I'm going to post another link to it on our blog. I will, because you should read this. It's not. He simplified the scientific aspects of this as much as you could. Although I told him this. I commended him for making it as simple as possible, but it's still not that simple. So it's a little scientifically dense. There are no formulas in it, but there's a lot of charts and graphs in this book. But it's like it's not an easy read. But you read this book, and assuming you can understand it, and it's not beyond the average person. I think you, dear watcher, are very much above average. You will walk away from this understanding that climate change is bullshit. And I've talked to other climatologists too, offline and not on the show. I remember I had this is where my journey on this whole thing started. I kind of hate to use that term, but still, it's true. And this is about 10, 12 years ago. It's about 2014. I can't actually remember the year now. I'm at the Christmas party for a very large scientific organization in the United States. I can't tell you I was there. I can't tell you what the organization was. I do remember for sure, but I'm there. So it's Christmas. It's a Christmas party. There's a lot of scientists in this large room, and everybody's getting drunk, and I am too. So I'm at the bar. Sitting at the bar with one of the foremost climatologists, academics in the United States, and I'm not going to name him either. I don't want to drag people into this, especially because of what he told me. And so I said to him, we're just talking. I said, Professor, tell me about climate change. And he slams his drink down on the bar and he says, yeah, I'll tell you about climate change. Climate change is bullshit. And he went on and talking for 20 minutes about how the fact that in his field, you could not get any sort of grant money to do any research if you didn't acknowledge climate change. And he says there's no climate change. He said it's complete crap. And he told me this, and he said, and he actually talked about the science of it, but I was literally too tipsy to remember any of it. I don't. It's terrible. It was terrible. I should, but I mean, the point was he knew, and he told me, which is the reason I'm not naming him because I don't want to out him. It'd be terrible if I actually said who he was and he literally lost money, you know. But yeah, so that was like 10, 12 years ago. And I was starting to think that at that time. I mean, science is kind of a hobby of mine, poking around. And I do a lot of reading. And, yeah, so I was starting to kinda come to the same conclusion, but to hear it from him, I was like, then I thought, "Oh my god, something's really weird going on here." And then I started to read more and more about it, and I realized, no, he's right. There is no human climate change, and yet they won't give this up. So now here, the woman who, what's her name? I can't remember her name. She's changed her name to just V because apparently that makes her cool. The woman who wrote the vagina monologues has written a new show called Dear Everything that is going to be starring Jane Fonda, and it's about, excuse me, it's about climate change, about how the catastrophe of looming climate change. There's none. It's no, it's complete utter crap. And these people, all these people who talk about this and do these, these shows, and it's like they don't know what they literally don't know what they're talking about. They don't. They talk about the science. Well, the science, David Strom writes on Hot Air, quote unquote, the science, capital letters. No, the science is bullshit. It just is. You want the real science. The real science says this isn't happening. Well, like I said, it is happening, but humans aren't causing it. That's the thing. So my wife and I took a trip up to Alaska. This is about I hate to say this, about 20 years ago now. But she took the same trip when she was a kid. And I can't remember where this was, although it was very famous. So we went to a lake that when she was there, when she was a child, was completely frozen over. And it's clear. It's clear water. And the tour guide was explaining how global warming is and the thing is, it's hard to look at these examples and not conclude that something's happening. Something is happening. The world is warming up. It is. But the thing is, okay, if we aren't causing it, should we try to stop it if it's natural? And that's no one ever addresses that. I don't think we should. If it's a natural phenomena, I don't think we should either try. There's if you ever watch the show, and I've never actually seen it, but I've read a lot about it. There's a show on is it on uh Max called Snowpiercer, and it's about a train that travels nonstop around the world because and the reason it does is because I think it's the American government or some world governments tried to cure climate change, and they failed so miserably that they put the world into permanent winter. And that's pretty much what would happen. If we tried to do this, it's like first of all, I had Patrick Moore on the show 2 weeks after it came on. So he was on, I think, in September 23, I think. When we had kind of just gotten up and running. And when he came on, 2 weeks after he came on, the United Nations posted a thing on their website, and I actually linked to it at the time, but so I've been told that page has been taken down. And the page said, we can cure climate change. We can stop it for only $75 trillion. only, only $75 trillion, and we can stop climate change. Now, the entire GDP of the entire United States, the output of everybody here per year is only $16 trillion. But they want 75, and stuff like this has also been floating around recently. So there's another thing about the fact that somebody said, well, if we grind up a bunch of diamonds and actually put them in the atmosphere, they will reflect the sun back off the earth. And I think that was going to cost $120 trillion or something like that. I can't even remember now what the cost of that is. And then there's another thing too. You got me started. Well, I guess that's why I do this show, isn't it? Everyone talks about CO2 and capping CO2 emissions, dioxide emissions. Not only is carbon dioxide not pollution, carbon dioxide is absolutely necessary. We are at Patrick Moore explained this, and I've got others explained it too. We're at a low end of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on Earth right now, compared historically. We're at 400 parts per million. If it gets below 150 parts per million, we all die. And typically, for most of history, it's been above 800 parts per million. Now, if you know what a greenhouse is, when people build these giant glass enclosed buildings to grow plants, the reason they do that isn't for the sunlight. It's for they pump CO2 into there. So with more CO2, you have more growth of plant life. on the planet. And with more growth of plant life, you process more atmosphere because the plants they use CO where we breathe oxygen, they breathe CO2. And that's the reason you have that enclosure. You get a lot of sun, and they pump in carbon dioxide, and they've come to the conclusion now. I can't remember what the figure is. Excuse me, I can't remember what the figure, but they've come to the conclusion now. There's basically an optimum point where if you can pump in more, it doesn't really help much. And I can't remember what that optimum point is. Is it 800? Is it double what I can't remember, but whatever. It's like no, CO2 is not pollution. And then there's a really other thing too. There's covers up this whole issue covers up another issue that's real. And you know what is pollution? Pollution. You got cars spewing out particulate matter in the air. That's crap. Now we've done a really good job here in the United States. There, we're now of the major countries or all the countries in the world, we're only responsible for 15% of the pollution output in the air in the world on the planet. Where we are, along with China and India, that we're the top three producers of auto emissions and all this sort of stuff. But we're at 15%. We've got it down. Brought it way down. But China and India they make up 2/3 of the entire planet emissions. And I'm not talking about carbon emissions. I'm talking about pollution emissions. And I suppose you could make an argument the liberals could that them bitching and moaning about it for 50 years has brought the pollution rate down. And yeah, that might be true. But the thing is, that's not what we're talking about now. We're not talking about pollution. We're talking about CO2. And CO2, we need CO2. We need more CO2. That's the thing, not less. And there's even some, Patrick Moore explained to us that there's even some debate in the scientific community whether CO2 actually creates heat, whether the greenhouse effect on the planet is real. It isn't a greenhouse, but whether that transfers to the entire planet is really quite is dubious. Anyway, I can go on for a while, can't I? I'm gonna show you here's our this is our sponsor, Kong News. They're a news aggregator. I used to work for Kong News. Enjoyed it immensely. Their CEO and publisher Jeff Myers is a regular guest on the show. Oh, Kong News is a news aggregator, but it's different than every other news aggregator on the web because of this. This is the way it is. Most news aggregators will take, the bunch of different news sources. Like I'll just name a few, like Breitbart, um, uh, Hot Air, Red State, and they will silo the top 10 stories from either one from each one. In other words, you have headlines from like Red State, you have headlines from Hot Air, you have headlines from Breitbart, you have headlines from Fox News, all this sort of stuff, right? And they're basically separate. But Kong News, this is completely different. What Kong News does is it takes from 75 different sources. Its servers go out onto the web to those 75 sources every 3 hours and bring back the latest stories. And then it combines the latest stories on the front page here in the order they're posted, regardless of where they're from. So you like, for example, if you're looking at this right now, I got a cursor here, but you can't see it. The top left story, I can tell by the little logo in the bottom left corner, is from Hot Air. The top middle story in the middle gutter, I can tell because of the lack of logo that that's from the New York Post. And so that's the way this works here. So all these stories end up getting bundled together. And so you'll see stories on the same topic, but they're from different sources and they're written by different people. And also the photos actually go along with all these stories too. The photos are from the stories. So you get several different perspectives on the same thing, on the same look. So this page is very, very long. You can't tell that by looking at that here. Like I said, 8 times a day, once every 3 hours, Kong servers go out, 75 different sources, grab the news, they lay it out. Newest stories go at the top. So you can come here at 10 a.m. and read this and spend a lot of time. I mean, if you go to the bottom of the page, you can spend a couple hours looking at this stuff, and that's not even with linking through. So all these headlines and all these photos link to the actual stories. That's another thing too. There's no buffer page. There's no interstitial page. There's no ad. Nothing. You go directly to that story. This is as closest thing as you can get to what I would call traditional newspaper online, and it's fantastic. And so I used to work here. I'm a proud ex-employee, and also I use it constantly to prepare the show. You can't get a better uh, overview of what's going on than checking in on this like a couple times a day. And the other thing is, so if you come at 10 a.m. and read all this, and then come back at 3 o'clock, about a third of it is different, and all that third's at the top, and you can page through it and stop where page it on the page, and you can stop where you've seen shit before. And also, if you come back the next day, it's almost all different. So anyway, check this out. It's at conk.news, CONK.news, or conk.com, either one. But they use conk, which you look at their logo here. It's conk.news. That is actually their address. Check that out there. Okay. All right. We'll try this. Okay. Now, well, I'm going to have to end. And I'm embarrassed to tell you why. I got to pee. I took my furosemide pill this afternoon, and that was probably a mistake. So yeah, so look, I had some UFO stuff we'll do it on Friday. I want to thank you for watching. Uh, I don't have a guest on Friday yet. I don't know if I'm going to, but we'll take calls because that's what we like to do. No one called tonight. That's too bad. Um, anyway, yeah, I'll see you. We'll be back here on Friday. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you. Take care.